Hi, my name is Vanessa Dixon. Welcome to All Points Bulletin on therapycable.com, where we discuss hot and sometimes controversial topics that are happening in our communities. Today we will be talking to a former gang member, and the episode is called From Gangs to Prison and Facing the Challenges of Starting Over. So I'd like to welcome my guest, Rudy. Rudy is a former gang member who was recently released from federal prison about 4 months ago and is living in a halfway house while he's on probation, which is similar to former federal parole. Welcome, Rudy. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me, Ms. Dixon.
So I just want you to start a little bit about your life, childhood and some of the things that we had talked about prior. What was it like growing up for you?
I was born and raised in L.A. My mother had me at a young age, and it was quite an experience growing up in L.A. during that time. For me, I'm not quite sure of that question.
So just tell me a little bit about your background. I know your mom was very young when she had you, and you grew up in Los Angeles.
Yes, that's correct.
So just tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was it like growing up with a young mom in Los Angeles during a high gang, when we were having really high gang problems at the time?
Yeah, during that time, it would be what I thought was the norm for my family. Living in the projects. We grew up in the Rose Hill projects, which is on the outskirts of Los Angeles. My mother, being young, did what she can do during that time. And as far as my uncles goes, they had a lifestyle during that time. And we had moved around quite a bit. I wouldn't say trying to escape, but trying to find an area would be somewhat suburb to us.
So it's kind of a safer neighborhood somewhere?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know one of the things that we had talked about prior was during school. Was school a priority to you when you were growing up, or explain a little bit about that?
School was just probably something to do, but it wasn't, in a sense, a major priority, in a sense. From first grade to eighth grade, I missed almost a lot. I barely just graduated from the eighth grade. High school, I only went to ninth grade, and then from there, I was taken to juvenile hall. And I didn't have anybody in the family in the sense where we had anybody who graduated from a college. I don't even know if my mother to this day even graduated high school.
So how old were you when you went to juvenile hall the first time you went?
I was around the age of 15.
Okay.
During that time.
But during that time, you described to me earlier that that's when you started to get gang involved, committing smaller crimes.
Yeah, I would say about the 7th grade is when I started more of the adolescence year, where I guess just doing, I wouldn't know if it would be normal to other kids, but what was normal to us would be experimenting with cigarettes, weed, stealing bikes, parts, breaking into the school grounds, vandalizing, and stuff like that, which I thought at that time was normal.
You also told me a little bit about part of your crimes and stealing was to also supply a drug habit at that time in your life as well, correct?
Right. We needed a source of income. Couldn't just wasn't going to be for free. So we would still during that time would be whatever we could profit from, in a sense.
So help me transition a little bit into your when you first started getting into the gangs, the gang culture. Because you were about 15, somewhere around there as well, correct?
Yes. I say about 15 is when I made different kind of transition where it was, I didn't have no guidance during that time, but I saw what I thought was like, okay, that's what I wanted to be. I seen, the local drug dealers or the local gang members, and they had, in a sense, they had the respect and the power. And during that time, it was just like, if you hear somebody's name and that person was whether it be a dope dealer / gang member, that was like, that's what I thought. Was like, okay, that's what I want to be. That's the person that's he seemed like he had everything going, and he knew where he was going, and was just I guess in a sense just cool to be around. You know what I mean? Because I was I guess maybe looking for that attention, and got into a gang, and during that time, I want to say it was. Criminally, maybe I could, get into that, where it was just a lot going on, from drug dealing, stealing, just a variety of stuff like insurance scams. Let me see what else.
Well, you talked about armed robbery and.
Yes, armed robbery.
Breaking into warehouses.
Breaking into warehouses. Right. If that was your, if that was your, your expertise, I would say.
So people in the gang culture kind of had a role.
Right.
So you were either robbing people or doing armed robberies, or
either you were using
selling dope, or
or you were just around, or you was gang banging. It was just there's just a lot of positions where you could just fill in as a youngster or as an adult.
So it was very organized, almost like a business in some sort, correct?
And you could look at it like that.
Right. So tell me a little bit about, I know that you had explained to me that your role was, you were a dope dealer. And that kind of was your role in the gang world, in your neighborhood. So tell me a little bit about that, a little bit about your exposure to that.
I would say media. In a sense, it played a little bit of its part, because you what I seen on TV during that time, during listening to rap music and watching, I wouldn't say rap music jump, but just listening to that kind of had to play a little bit in this part, because it had the women on there, it had the nice cars, and in a sense, it was like a fantasy,
right?
And I was attracted to that, Having known what I know now, I would have hoped that I would have had some sort of proper guidance, in a sense, someone to explain to me that that's just a fantasy, that's not real, my life would have probably been a little bit more different.
So I'm going to bring it back a little bit. We had talked about you being arrested, you were sent to juvenile hall, and you kind of described it to me that you somehow got lost in the system.
I kind of slipped through the cracks. Because there was actually some people that really wanted to help.
Right.
But, I would say that I wasn't consistent in going to see them. And due to that, years later, I got rearrested for something else. And then by that time, I was 18 and I was out of the hands of the juvenile system.
Right.
And from there, it was just basically, how do I say this? Just looking for guidance, anybody who was around, during that time.
So do you think that the gang culture kind of fit that need for guidance or support, or, you often hear people talk about the gang world as being, replacing your family? Yeah.
It did. For me, it did. I can't say, I can't speak for anybody else. That would be for me. I want to be, I was looking for, family, someone not to judge me. I was vulnerable in a sense, because home was kind of chaos, and...
you want to touch upon that a little bit, or?
Just not understanding what was going on. It was just confusing. Just a lot of problems that weren't, a lot of the problems that we had at home were kind of swept under the rug, weren't talked about.
Kind of the gang, what you found out later on, that
Yeah.
your uncles were in gangs and
Right.
and also using drugs.
Yeah, and also, so that really, in that sense, really confused me also. And not having a male role model um, to look up to, you know what I mean? My mother, she did what she best that she could do. And, that's what I look to for a lot in the big homies who, you know, who knew what they knew at that time. And, you know, we can only show affection in that way.
Right.
And
So describe a little bit about that lifestyle then. You said that they were your role models, and you shared prior to your arrest in 2003 kind of where you were at. You were at the high life of your gang career, your fantasy, everything that you had thought and dreamed it could be, right?
Right. I thought I had. How can I say? I thought I had it all, but really it was really affecting others.
Okay, but describe a little bit about what does it mean to have it all. You shared with me.
Oh yeah, man, I thought that I didn't need an education. I look at I got a little money in my pocket. I got a car, and
What kind of car were you driving at that time?
when I was 21, I was driving a 740 Li. And that was in 2001. To me, that was like the biggest thing.
And you got all these possessions by selling dope at the time, correct?
Correct.
So you were making a lot of money then.
For 21, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, was this something that you thought was going to be the rest of your life? This kind of gang banging, dope dealing lifestyle?
Yes. It was just more about the moment. Not thinking about the repercussions of what the other side looked like. I thought everything was on the up and up. Everything was looking great, and it really isn't. Going through what I'm going through right now, it's been tough.
Right, and we're definitely going to spend a bit of time on, how starting over has been a challenge for you as well. But I think a lot of us know that when it comes to selling dope or any of those things too, that guns and that lifestyle and putting yourself at risk also comes at a high price as well.
Right. Definitely wasn't thinking about that during that time. For all those, what you have mentioned, wasn't thinking about it. It was just, I was on Go Street. There was no repercussion, no one there to say, well, if you do this, this is what's going to happen.
Did you ever fear for your life?
Did I ever fear? Depending on the situation, but other than that, I didn't even think about that.
So being gunned down or any of that stuff really wasn't so much your priority. It was just kind of living the high life day to day.
Yeah, I mean, those were all possible things to happen, but it was the norm.
Right.
Losing a friend, I mean, not a homeboy, became, okay, you're gonna lose one this year, and then you're gonna lose one the next year.
How did you lose them though?
To gang violence, and then as the years progress to drugs, and then to suicide. And being, I wouldn't say I've been to a lot, but being to some of them, it numbs you.
Right.
It's just, okay, he's dead. Okay, I pour him out. Pour some liquor for the homie, and that was it. And then we never talked about it. So I don't know how to mourn for somebody. I do miss them, the ones who have passed, and thinking about it now, and them missing out in their lives and all their opportunities what they could have been, and taken away from their family.
So, I mean, you were also using during that time, and I know you had a pretty big scare, and you described it to me earlier as kind of the Pac-Man effect, and I'll let you speak to that about your own drug use during the time.
Right. So, like I said, when I was younger, even as my adult years, I never had no guidance, no one to explain to me about certain feelings. So I used drugs and alcohol to really numb it. If I didn't understand it, or I didn't want to feel it, I kind of just drowned myself in alcohol or whatever drug was around during that time. I went out a lot, practically every day, and
You also almost died too. You had a major seizure as well.
I did. When I had turned myself in for my federal time, I had taken a variety of drugs to just kind of I don't want to think about reality. I thought that before I went into the federal system, I thought what I had was a lot of time. Now thinking about it, I was just there compared to other people in their time. I was just there for the weekend.
Right.
So during that time, in the county jail, I had what they call is a grand mal seizure, because my body was having withdrawals. So I rolled off the top bunk, dislocated my shoulder, and I nearly killing myself. And went to the hospital, and it hit me then that like, what am I doing? How many more times am I gonna play Russian roulette in a sense? And during that time, I knew that I wanted change, but I just didn't know how.
Gotcha. All right, we need to take a brief break to hear a message from our sponsor, and then we'll be back with Rudy.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
Welcome back to All Points Bulletin on the therapycable.com. We're back with Rudy, and Rudy, I just want to kind of summarize a little bit of the stuff that we talked about. You growing up with having a young mom, not a lot of guidance, both of your uncles that you were exposed to with both gang members and drug abusers. Describe some of the things that you think that you missed when you were a young person.
Now that I think about it, I missed out in a lot. I missed out in high school. I never got to go to prom. I never got to experience what high school was really about and what it could really offer. I missed actually being a family.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what a family was. I've only seen what a family is on TV in a sense. Not having a father is probably another factor that played into my life, because it's just it's not easy for a single a mother to raise a young man, especially at a young age. I mean, well, when it gets to the teens.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just really confusing looking for that support in a sense to lead me to a better life where in a sense of making healthier life choices. That's what I think I missed out on a lot on. So most of the time I was real vulnerable. And when I was with the homies, it wasn't it was, it was more about that family style, just because they didn't forget about me, not judging me, the loyalty, was everything, knowing that we may not have the right answers, but, just being down for one another was big. It was really big.
Thank you. And I want to kind of fast forward you a little bit. Now you've been released from federal prison for the last 4 months. You're living in a halfway house. You still are on probation for, I believe, the next 3 years or so, correct?
Yes.
So what is life, and I know you will get into a little bit what your goals are, but what is life like now? I mean, having spent close to, over 10 years in and out of prison and the last 5 years in federal prison, what is life going to be like, or what is it like for you right now?
Coming out of prison, as you're just real vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I've changed so much, and it's a little bit difficult to make the transition. Really, the hardest part is really letting go of my old lifestyle. Period.
So we talked about that before. It's almost like an addiction.
Right. And that's like the major thing right now that I deal with is just letting go of that old self.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I had an identity, which I thought I did in a sense, letting that go is like, it's I'm not gonna lie to you, it's scary, And
it continues, from what I'm hearing, it continues for you to be a challenge, not to look back or fantasize about that lifestyle that you had before, correct?
Right. And that's the whole part that really is challenging every day, every hour of trying to move forward to make positive changes.
Because you talked about it's almost like reprogramming your brain from
right.
From the lifestyle that you lived, for well over 10, 15 years.
Yeah, where I like basically what we have talked over is about just basically I've conditioned myself to think that's the norm of every day, and if you're not in my world, then you're weird.
Okay, so the gang world was how you conditioned yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought that was the okay. If you told me something about yourself, and during my younger years, I would have been like, where do you live?
So you would have had no concept about playing organized sports or doing things that normal teenagers or young adults did. That was not normal to you.
If it was sports, I was betting.
Mm-hmm.
If it was sports, I wanted, to know how I could flip my money to, what would be a good bet.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing more about, I didn't care about being a team or anything like that. It was just more about how can I, capitalize on it in a sense.
Right.
And no, I didn't know anything about what I would say normal kids were doing or young adults were doing during that time.
So even, just to back it up a step, even before that, when you had been arrested, you had a crack cocaine charge with intent, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you had some other charge pending. You were able to plea it out. You only did a few months in state, in and out for other crimes like DUI and a couple other things, correct?
Correct.
So fast forward a little bit. So you get arrested for what? What do you end up going away for on your federal charge?
For my federal charge, conspiracy to intent to distribute MDMA,
Mm-hmm.
which was ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
That I went away for about 5 years.
So the reality was, I'm not saying you had it easy in state time, but I think you had a rude awakening when you found out that the feds weren't joking around. That was no joke when they told you what your sentence was going to be, correct?
Yes. During that time, I just didn't see that there was. I thought it was forever, but really
the lifestyle was forever, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just you know, in this lifestyle, you know, you're gonna go to jail sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's just basically a lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But that comes all a part of it, you know. But man, during that time, I was just tired. Because everything during that time, because everything that, you know, was going on was just, I was just like, forget it, you know. Drown myself in alcohol and drugs and whatever else I can do to forget about what's going to happen in the future.
Okay. So in federal prison, you studied, you got your GED. You really kind of started taking life a little bit more serious being incarcerated, correct?
That's correct.
And now, so now you have your GED, you're enrolled? Yes,
I'm enrolled in a community college, hoping to transfer into UCI as an undergrad. And from there, I hope to get my BA in computer science, and at the same time have another career, which is working with the youth and the young adults, and seeing what difference I can make in their lives.
So you want to do counseling and become a role model, mentor?
Any way that I can.
So if I had to ask you, where did we go wrong? Do you think that the juvenile justice system I know you got kind of mixed up in the shuffle there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think that if the juvenile justice system held on to you longer, that maybe you wouldn't have been able to go the path that you did into the lifestyle of, you know, dealing dope and the gang world?
I think about that every now and then. I really don't know. I'm going to give you an honest answer. If I would have had more positive role models, I want to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. But we do need more role models in the community, and in a sense of looking at the way society looks at gang members now, or anybody who they just don't understand that, you know, we do need to spend more time with them and help them guide them, not just 6 months. Sometimes it takes longer, 5 years, maybe 10.
Okay.
And maybe a little longer.
So again, I mean, we've talked about your challenges, and I know that being out, and it is somewhat of an addiction. You know, you continually have to do what you have to do to stay on the right side versus the wrong side. One of my questions was, would you consider yourself to be a former gang member or a reforming gang member now?
A reforming gang member.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to let go, like I said, of that identity. You know, I'm not gonna say that I was crazy, but you know, I did my fair share, and in a sense, my other side of me takes pride in that.
Right.
And that's hard to, you know, let go. You know, because
you're starting over again.
Right.
Without the 740 BMW and the status and
basically.
Okay. Again, Rudy, I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking very openly about your life. And at some point, I'd love to have you back on and do a follow-up to see where you are in the next few months. And I really do. I wish you the best of luck. I know that this is always going to be a challenge for you and almost a disease that you continually have to fight. So I appreciate your time.
I thank you.
Thank you.